I used to think loneliness was something that happened later in life, something you worry about when you're old, when everyone else is gone, when time finally catches up to you. I didn't think it had anything to do with me. I had a job. I had a routine. I had a role to play every day. From the outside, my life looked full. But there was a moment, a very quiet moment, when I realized something was wrong. I was sitting alone in my house, no phone ringing, no messages waiting, no one needing anything from me, and the silence felt unbearable, not peaceful, not calm, heavy, almost threatening. I wasn't sad exactly. I wasn't crying. I just felt exposed, like when the noise stops and you're suddenly left alone with thoughts you've been avoiding for years. That was the first time I wondered if the problem wasn't that I was alone, but that I didn't know how to be with myself. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm not here to tell you everything will be fine. I'm here because ignoring that silence almost killed me, and there's a good chance it's quietly hurting more people than we like to admit. For a long time, I thought what I was feeling was a personal failure, something wrong with me. But then I started seeing the numbers, and they stopped me cold. In this country, nearly 15% of men say they have no close friends, not coworkers, not people they nod at, no one they can actually call. That number was barely 3% in 1990. One generation. That's all it took. This isn't a trend. This is a quiet collapse. And if you're watching this, there's a real chance you recognize yourself in it, even if you've never said it out loud. You can be busy and still be lonely. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely disconnected. Most men don't talk about it, not because it doesn't hurt, but because they don't know how to name it. Loneliness doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes it looks like a full calendar and an empty life, and that's when it becomes dangerous. I should probably tell you who I am before I go any further, because I'm not a therapist, and I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm 88 years old, and for most of my life, I worked freight trains for Union Pacific. I spent decades alone in a locomotive cab at 2 in the morning, crossing empty stretches of land with nothing but the engine noise and my own thoughts. I know what solitude feels like, but here's the thing most people don't understand. Being alone like that didn't teach me how to live with myself. It only taught me how to stay busy. I always had somewhere to be, something to do, and eventually, someone to come home to. And as long as that was true, I never had to face what was waiting for me in the quiet. 6 years ago, my wife died. We had been married for 54 years, and when she was gone, something in my life didn't just break, it vanished. I didn't lose a companion. I lost the structure that had been quietly holding everything together. She was the one who remembered birthdays, kept up with neighbors, made the calls, planned the dinners, and maintained the friendships. I just showed up where she told me to show up. I thought that made me easygoing. What it really made me was dependent. When she died, I didn't just grieve her. I discovered how empty my world actually was. I didn't have friends to call. My sons lived states away, busy with their own lives. The house felt too big and strangely unfamiliar. For the first time in my life, there was no one managing the emotional side of my existence. And standing there alone, I realized something I had never prepared for. I didn't know how to live without being carried. After she died, the days didn't fall apart all at once. They just slowly emptied out. I'd wake up in the morning, sit down in my recliner, turn on the television, and leave it on all day. Not because I wanted to watch anything, but because I couldn't stand the quiet. The silence felt like it was pressing in on me, like it was waiting for me to think too hard about things I didn't want to face. I didn't cook. I didn't go anywhere. I ate scrambled eggs or whatever was easy. And some days I barely ate at all. Weeks blurred into months. I lost nearly 50 pounds, and I didn't care. My doctor told me I was killing myself, and I didn't argue with him, because part of me already knew that was true. I wasn't sad in a dramatic way. I wasn't crying on the floor. I was just slowly disappearing. I stopped making decisions. I stopped planning. I stopped imagining a future. I was alive, but I wasn't living. And the hardest part to admit is this: being alone wasn't what hurt the most. Being left alone with my own thoughts was. That's where I almost disappeared, and that's where a lot of men get lost without anyone noticing. It took me a long time to understand what was actually happening, because I kept using the wrong word for it. I thought I was lonely because I was alone, but those two things are not the same. You can be surrounded by people and still feel desperately lonely. And you can be by yourself and feel completely at ease. Loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. Loneliness is about the relationship you have with yourself. That idea sounded strange to me at first, but then I tried to look at it honestly. If you had a friend you were going to spend every hour of every day with for the rest of your life, what would you want from that person? You'd want someone honest. Someone who tells you the truth without tearing you down. Someone encouraging, who sees where you could be and nudges you forward instead of reminding you of every mistake. And someone forgiving, who knows your failures and doesn't punish you for them forever. That's the standard you need to meet for yourself. Because here's the truth nobody really prepares men for. You are the one person who will be with you every single moment of your life. Parents die. Spouses leave or pass away. Children grow up and move on. Friends come and go. But you are the one companion you cannot escape. And if you don't know how to live with that person, solitude becomes unbearable. Once I understood that loneliness had more to do with me than with anyone else, I had to face something I'd been avoiding for a long time. I wasn't someone I enjoyed being alone with. When the television was off and the house was quiet, my mind turned on me. Every mistake I'd ever made showed up at once. All the things I should have done differently. All the times I chose work over my family. I had to admit that I wasn't the father I could have been. I was gone too much. And when I was home, I was tired and distracted. That truth hurt, but pretending it wasn't true hurt even more. You can't build a relationship with someone who lies to you all the time, and that includes yourself. For years, I'd outsourced that part of my life. My wife was the one who encouraged me, forgave me, and told me I was doing okay. When she was gone, I had no skills for doing those things on my own. I was 79 years old and emotionally unprepared to live inside my own head. That was the real problem. Not the empty house, not the quiet mornings. It was the constant judgment and self-criticism that made solitude feel unbearable. Until I faced that honestly, being alone was never going to feel safe. After you tell yourself the truth, there's another step most men skip. And that's forgiveness, not excuses, not pretending things were fine. Forgiveness. I had to learn the difference between being tough and being cruel. I grew up believing that if you were hard enough on yourself, you'd somehow become better. But all that did was make me someone I didn't want to live with. Every morning, my mind would replay the same failures, the same regrets, like a punishment that never ended. You can't build a future if you're constantly being sentenced for the past. I had to say it out loud, even when it felt uncomfortable. Yes, I failed in some ways. Yes, I made choices I wouldn't make again. But I was a human being doing the best I could with what I knew at the time. That wasn't weakness. That was honesty. And here's something men don't hear enough. Being kind to yourself doesn't make you soft. It makes you stable. If every moment alone turns into a trial, you'll run from solitude into anything that numbs you. Learning to forgive myself didn't erase the past, but it finally gave me room to move forward. Forgiveness alone wasn't enough. If I was going to spend my days alone, I had to become someone I actually respected, not someone other people admired, someone I could live with. That meant doing hard, ordinary things and doing them consistently. I started with the basics. I taught myself how to cook real meals. I was nearly 80 years old, and the most complicated thing I'd ever made before that was canned chili. I bought a cookbook and ruined more dinners than I ate. But every time I tried again, something shifted. I was taking care of myself instead of waiting to be taken care of. I also made a promise to walk every morning, 2 miles before breakfast, no matter the weather. I live in Wyoming. There's plenty of weather. Some mornings it was cold enough to make my lungs burn, but I went anyway, because I said I would. Keeping promises to yourself builds self-respect faster than any speech ever could. When you break your word to yourself, you lose trust in the only person you're guaranteed to live with. I stopped doing that. Slowly, almost quietly, I became more reliable to myself than I'd ever been. And here's what surprised me most. The more I respected myself, the less unbearable being alone felt. Solitude stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like space. That didn't happen overnight, but it happened because I finally became someone I didn't need to escape from. Once I could take care of myself and keep my word to myself, something else became clear. I needed a reason to wake up in the morning that wasn't just habit, not something to impress anyone, not something that made money, something that mattered to me. For me, that turned out to be model trains. I know how that sounds. I'm an old railroad man, and now I spend hours in my basement building a miniature world. But when I'm working on that layout, my hands are busy and my mind is engaged. I'm solving problems. I'm creating something. And in those hours, I'm not lonely. What matters isn't the hobby itself. It's the sense of purpose that comes with doing something real. Human beings aren't built to sit still and wait. When you stop working, learning, and contributing in some way, something inside you starts to shut down. That isn't philosophy. That's biology. Once I had routines, skills, and something to care about, the mornings stopped feeling heavy. I still missed my wife, and I always will. But the loneliness stopped crushing me, because I finally had a life that didn't disappear the moment no one else was around. Learning how to be alone didn't mean giving up on other people. It meant I could finally be with them without clinging to them. That's an important difference. When you can't stand your own company, you'll accept almost any relationship just to avoid the silence. You stay where you shouldn't stay. You tolerate things you shouldn't tolerate. I did that for years without realizing it. Once I became comfortable with myself, something changed. I wasn't desperate anymore. I could choose. I started showing up again, slowly. A few mornings a week, I go to a truck stop not far from my house. There are 6 of us old-timers who meet for breakfast. We drink coffee, talk about the weather, complain about politics, and joke about what hurts that day. It's not deep emotional sharing. We're old men. That's not how we're wired. but it's connection. It's routine. It's enough. And the reason it works is because I don't need them to fill a hole inside me. I can be myself at that table because I'm not asking them to save me. When you stop needing people to complete you, you finally make room for real connection. There's something I want to say to the men who are younger than me, because I see what's happening, and some of it worries me. A lot of men today are lonely, and they don't know why. They're angry at the world, at women, at society, because the connection they expected never showed up. Loneliness hurts. It's a real, physical pain. The research shows it damages your health almost as much as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So the pain is real, and it shouldn't be dismissed. But turning that pain into bitterness will only shrink your life. The answer isn't to demand connection. The answer is to become someone worthy of it. That means learning how to be honest without being cruel, kind without being weak, and reliable without needing applause. It means showing up consistently, even when it's awkward, even when no one notices at first. Real connection doesn't form overnight. Trust is built slowly, through shared time and shared effort. There are no shortcuts. If you can learn to live with yourself, if you can become your own companion first, you'll stop chasing approval and start attracting real relationships. And that change, quiet as it is, will alter the direction of your entire life. I'm 88 years old now, and I live alone in this house. I wake up when I want. I eat what I want. I spend my time the way I choose. There are worse fates than that. But I didn't arrive here by accident. I spent almost a year sitting in that recliner, watching the days pass, waiting for something to end. That chair doesn't look dangerous at first. Sometimes it looks like a job you hate but keep anyway. Sometimes it looks like another night of scrolling, another promise to start tomorrow. Sometimes it looks like telling yourself you'll deal with it later. But it's the same chair. It's the place where life slowly slips by while you're busy waiting for the right moment. I still miss my wife every day. I always will. But I'm not waiting to die anymore. I became someone I could stand to be alone with, and that changed everything. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Are you going to keep sitting in that chair, telling yourself there's still time, or are you going to get up and live while you still can? I waited longer than I should have. I hope it doesn't take you that long.